Okay, so we'll get started, everybody. I'm Dr. Baumanis. I'm actually your director of X Culture Academy, and we are recording. If you want to communicate with us, we have Annette here who is the assistant to the number 2 guy for Academy, and she's running the show today. Then we have Jaron, who is our security IT guy, who is joining us today. And then we have Emily, who's one of our senior coaches. So if you have any questions, go ahead and post it in the chat. If you would like to speak to us, raise your hand. If you have really important questions, put it in the Q&A and you can direct it to one of us. Well, one of the senior coaches that you have here. And that way we can help you in real time. So Annette and Raphael and all the senior coaches actually asked me to do this presentation once upon a time. And I didn't have the access to the presentation because I was transitioning from one university to another. And I was in the middle of buying a laptop and I just didn't have access to a lot of my resources. So today, you actually have the privilege of listening to that presentation that my senior coaches had requested from me. So this concept of life balance basics was something that I developed for myself back when I was a young mom in graduate school, trying to join the workforce and really coming to terms with, okay, I've got all of these roles that I have to manage now, and how do I effectively do them without compromising my relationship with the important people in my life? Okay, so that's why I actually developed this mentality, this attitude, and this compartmentalizing what I call my roles. And eventually I developed it into a presentation. Of course, I had a lot of help. I read books and books and books and books to really learn how to self-manage. And then what I call now well-beings, I dwindled it down to what I call is our well-beings, because what it seems like is that all of these self-help gurus have basically the same kind of mentality, right? The ones who are very successful. Stephen Covey was the self-help guru when I was coming of age. Of course, you guys know Deepak Chopra. Of course, you guys know, what is his name? He wrote The Good Earth, and he wrote The Power of Now. It'll come to me in a second. It'll come to me when I'm not thinking about it. But all of these self-help gurus really helped develop the mentality that I have today that has helped me manage a lot of the roles that I hold really near and dear to my heart. So let's go to the next slide, Annette. Thank you for being my number 2 assistant, by the way.
No problem.
So this is basically our outline. So we'll talk about the past, and then we'll talk about the present, and then the future. And then I'll ask you to be jotting down some questions that you need to ask yourself, right? But then while you're jotting these down, these answers down, I'll give you an explanation of what life balance basics is, your 4 hats, and developing your winning team. I did take out getting to quadrant 2 because I didn't have the time to teach you what quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4 means. But I just forgot to take off that outline little toggle there. Next, Annette. Okay, so let's talk about the past. For those of you guys who don't know yet, I come from the Philippine Islands. I actually come from the capital. So if you take a look at the biggest island, you'll see the capital there, Manila. And I was born into a poor family. The picture on the top there is my mother, and that's me as a baby. And then the picture below was the year after. So I must have been 6 years old there because my baby sister looked like she was about 1. But my mother died when I was 5 years old, and that's where she's buried in the Philippines. And she left behind 5 daughters. Now, for those of you guys who know this already culturally, in Asia and predominantly in Catholic societies in the 60s, having a son was actually the goal, right? So my mother and father kept trying to have a son, my father more than my mother. My mother was told that she really needed to stop having children after 3. But she kept on trying because in Asia, it is in the 60s, it was very important for you to have a son. And our mother died. She was 25. She actually started having babies when she was 19. And she did lose a baby. One baby did not make it through the birth. And me, I'm the one in the pink there. I'm the oldest, the tallest one. And me being the oldest daughter, when she died at the age of 25, in our culture, you become now the parent role, right? You become kind of like the mother to your little sisters, and you become, you hold on to the responsibilities that your mother would have served. I was very fortunate that I had a grandmother. That's her holding the baby there. She was in her 60s when my mother died. Now, my grandmother herself raised 10 children by herself. My grandfather died when my mother was a teenager, and she gave birth to 9 children, and she actually adopted a 10th child. And a little background about my grandmother: she raised 10 children on her own, and each one of them ended up being successful small business owners. And the 10th child, who was the youngest child, came about because her maid at the time was so poor that when she gave birth to her baby, she didn't have the money to pay for the medical bills, and they wouldn't release the child. So my grandmother went to the hospital to go and have the child released. And then when she went to bring it back to the maid, she said she didn't want the child because she couldn't afford to raise the child. So my grandmother ended up taking care of that child. And thus she turned out to be a mother of 10 children and basically raising them alone. So strong woman, right? And then my mother is actually child number 7 of the 10. And when she died, my grandmother then adopted the 5 of us because our father was traveling to the United States to work. And by adopting the 5, she raised us. I left her when I was 10 years old, but we went to the United States one by one eventually. So that woman right there, that little tiny woman who's probably not taller than 5 foot tall, right? Raised maybe 20 children in her lifetime. Her life was really, I mean, besides the fact that she was strong and she helped develop all of these small businesses, the impact that she gave to us was really how she lived her life and how she gave her life to the people she loved. And that's how I remember her, not just, for her financial accomplishments, but how she loved and how she was able to share that love with so many people. Okay, so I just want you to remember that because I think that those are the kinds of things that stick. Okay, next slide. So this is my reality as a child. I know that you guys look at these pictures and say, "Oh my God," but if you take a look at that the picture on the top left corner, that was my childhood. I mean, I remember playing with my cousins and living in that kind of here in the United States, we would consider that extremely poor. If you take a look at the lower bottom left picture, those were the kind of homes that I was exposed to living as a little kid in the Philippines. So I don't know if you can see the bamboo walls of that top picture where those little children are eating, the boy without a shirt on. So yeah, right there, that's a part of a nipa hut. So I lived in a nipa hut. My grandmother had a compound, and before my mother died, we lived in a one-room nipa hut on the property. We had a mud floor, we had the bamboo walls, and then we had thatched roofs. Thatched roofs is when you take palm fronds and you pack it on top of each other so that when it rained, the water would come away from the dwelling, but then there was still a lot of holes in the roof, and you had a lot of leakage. It's very wet inside. The floor was packed mud. I remember as a little girl, me and my little sisters, we would make holes, and then we would go out into the neighborhood and find the roundest rock, that we could find, so we could use them as marbles. Some of our toys, I remember having a small Coca-Cola bottle, which have come back now in the United States, by the way. And we would go around in the garden and catch different color butterflies. And then we would feed our butterflies blades of grass. And those were our toys. And honestly, as a little girl living in what here in the United States, we would call a squatter or a ghetto. That's what we would consider this here in the United States, by the way. But living in these deplorable conditions, now that I see that, I didn't know that I was that poor. I didn't know that I was deprived of anything. I don't really consider myself having had been deprived of anything. I was loved. I have family around me that took care of me. And what I do realize now is that the healthcare wasn't there. I remember being sick often. I mean, I can share with you some of the illnesses that I had, which will just eat up our time and not really necessary. But I was sick often. My sisters and I were sick often. School was like a luxury. Going to the doctor or the dentist was a luxury. We only got to go to the dentist when and I think it was the Americans who sent them when the doctors would come to town once or twice a year. And you would go to the center, and we called it a center because it was built like a center. Everything was there, right? That's where you went to go to school. That's where you went for your health care, your dental care. That's where you got your vaccinations. So it was the center. Everybody in the village would go there to get what they needed. I have a picture here for you guys of the floods, because in the Philippines, when I was growing up, flooding was like a big thing. And I remember there were times when once we moved into my grandmother's house after my mother died, we weren't permitted to go downstairs until the floods subsided. And sometimes the floods would be like, days, if not weeks. So those natural disasters were happening even, when I was a little kid and probably before me. But those kinds of conditions are very dangerous for impoverished communities. So that was my childhood. Next, Annette. So I immigrated to the United States as a 10-year-old. My mother had died when I was 5. You guys saw where she was buried. My father had taken a job as a nuclear power plant engineer in an island called Wake Island, not too far away from Hawaii. And he remarried an American. And she had 7 children of her own. My father had the 5 daughters who you guys saw. And we became a blended family. They sent for me when I was a 10-year-old. My little sister was 9. And then we were sent for 2 by 2. And it was a hard transition. I came from a very poor community where I was loved and provided for. And then my father sent for me, and I immigrated into a community where I had the basic necessities, but it was void of love. It was void of attention. It was void of hopefulness. And I remember being a little kid in the impoverished conditions that I lived in, that hopefulness was what kept us going. Hopefulness was what made us want to learn how to speak English, for example. So I didn't actually learn how to speak English until I was 10 years old. Hopefulness made you want to be better, to strive, to achieve, right? And moving to the United States, the hopefulness was taken away because all of a sudden you have the opportunities. And you still wanted to be hopeful, but I have to tell you that I know the difference between having unconditional love and then moving to the United States and growing up in the family where there was no unconditional love, that you always had to compete for the attention. And again, I don't really blame the adults in my family or my parents. My stepmother had her own 7 children to take care of. And my father, a Filipino father, is really it's not the same kind of fathers that we have today in the United States, where fathers are more integrated and fathers are more attentive. So we kind of had a condition where we had to provide for ourselves. And really that's when all of a sudden I am really the mother to my 4 little sisters. That's really when it kicked in, right? That now I have to be the mother to my 4 little sisters because we don't have a parent. My mother had died. My grandmother was left behind in the Philippines, and my new stepmother was really mostly interested in raising her own children. And my father was busy working. So it became kind of my responsibility to parent my 4 little sisters. Another thing that I did very early, I was, one of the things that my father gifted me, thank you, Papa, was that I was very intelligent, and I did really well in school. I was able to graduate as a 17-year-old from high school, from an American high school. And I joined the Army very early. When you're a 17-year-old in the United States, and it was in the 80s, jobs weren't easy to come by. So I joined the military. And I want to say that the military really started my American journey, because that's really where I started to learn how to be strong. Well, although I really already had it in myself, but I didn't have the organizational concepts, right? I learned how to be a leader. I learned how to be resistant. I learned how to survive. And as a 17-year-old soldier in the military, and it was at a time where the Americans were just integrating women into the military, I really had to prove myself. And so I joined the Army and went through the ranks fairly fast. I did meet my husband in the Army when I was 18, and I married him when I was 19, and I became a young mom. We had children right away. So these are my 3 little kids in the bottom here. You'll see later on that they're all grown now. But that's really when my American life started to take a turn, when I joined the military and I married well. So this is a hint, you guys. For the rest of your life, the one thing that will impact the quality of the rest of your life is the person that you choose to share your life with. Okay, so I'm telling you that so you don't screw it up. You still have the choice. You still have the opportunity, hopefully, to make sure that you choose well. but make sure that you choose with your heart and your soul and your mind. Don't just choose for, let me pose it to you this way. My next door neighbor said this once, and I thought, oh my God, he's absolutely right, right? Being married to somebody that you are not in love with, or you are not happy with, or you are not fulfilled with, right? It makes it a long and arduous life. Whereas when you're married to someone that you love, that you're in love with, and that you are happy with, time is never long enough. So I'll just leave it at that. Okay. So next slide, Annette. So I saw this and I thought, okay, this is like my mantra. You know, what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. And that has always been what my mantra has helped me to remember, is that what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. Go ahead, Annette. In fact, I actually said something the other day that I thought was also going to be my new mantra. I meant to put it on my Facebook page, but I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling her that I was having just some anxieties. I'm transitioning into a new position, and I'm just having some anxieties about moving. So you guys, you know I'm supposed to have everything together, and I'm supposed to be like perfect for everybody. That's not real, you guys. Like, even though I'm as experienced and accomplished and successful as I am today, I still feel anxiety when I'm transitioning into a new thing, a new place. But transitioning into my new job, I was telling my friend that, this is the first week that I haven't really been like inundated with an anxiety. And then I was also telling her that one of my colleagues actually said to me, Dr. Baumanis, you are not allowed to say anything for 2 years, the first 2 years, because you're a rookie. And I remember looking at him and saying, in my head, I didn't say this out loud, so be careful how you say things. You have no idea the dragons that I had to slay in order to be where I am today. So I'm saying this in my head. So that kind of goes with what doesn't kill you will make you stronger, right? Okay, so this is my present. This is actually an old present, old now because I wasn't able to change my pictures. I'm a professor. As you guys know, I actually transitioned to a new role as the lead professor and the program coordinator at Lynn University in the College of Business. I have 3 beautiful children who have already gone to college, all college graduates, and all launched and successful. I'm an avid fitness exerciser. I'm an avid gardener, although I don't seem to get out there much at all because I'm working all the time. And I live in a home that I could have never imagined for myself. It's not a mansion, so get that out of your head, but it is way big enough for myself. And I could probably use a little smaller of a house, but let me just say it like this. I have so much more than I'd ever hoped for as a little girl coming from, the barrios of the Philippines. It's a life that I could not, I was not capable of even imagining as a kid, in the Philippines. And growing up in the arduous life that I had as a teen, which I'm sure most of you guys are teens right now, I still didn't have the capacity to live the life that I didn't have the capacity to imagine the life that I'm living today. So what I want you to get out of this is that despite what you're going through, and despite the global pandemic and the political instabilities going on in the world, and the obstacles that are so visible and present right in front of you, I want you to remember that the sun will shine tomorrow. And even if you can't see it behind the clouds, I can promise you that the sun is there. Okay. I once read a book, the Emanuel Swedenborg book, that said that God is represented by the sun on earth every day. So when I watch the sunrise in the morning, I say good morning to God, because that's a representation of God to me. And if you even think about it a little bit, right? God, or the sun, gives life to plants. The sun gives life to us. The sun gives light to all of us. So, I always take note that every day the sun will rise. And despite the obstacles that you have in your life, every day is a new day, and every day you can make a change. Okay. I'll tell you that there's a little change to the present that I'll tell you in the end, but I don't want it to really impact the way that I talk to you today. Okay, but I'll go ahead and save that to the end, so you'll have something to look forward to. Okay, go ahead, Annette. So family. So one of the things that I learned was setting your priorities. So for me, my family is my priority. My 3 kids, like I said, you guys saw the pictures of my little girls, right? These are the women that they are today. And family is really what has been the center of my life. I didn't realize, of course, I didn't realize this as I was growing up, right? So when you're a kid, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be this someday, or I want to do that someday, or I want to go here. And then when I started having family, children, they became really the more important thing in my life. And hopefully for you guys, as you recognize the importance of your relationship with your parents, that family is the center of your life. And it doesn't have to be, your mother or father. It could be your grandparents. It could be your aunt. It could be your siblings. And then some of us choose, your best friends as your family. I mean, I'm surrounded by women. So for me, I've been very fortunate that every time I've needed somebody to be with me, because, children grow up and they start their own lives. And what I find is that I have these chosen sisters. So I belong in a sisterhood, right? And I have these chosen sisters that really fill a lot of the void once your family grow up and move away. So that's another thing that I want to teach you. So we're going to move on to that next. And we'll talk more about that as we get further down the road. Next, Annette. So I have an international career, as you guys know. As a professor, I've taught all over the world. I also have a consulting job which I don't have a lot of time for now, but where I'm invited by institutions to come and teach. I do a lot of research. One of the research that I've done was in India, where I learned about solar panel electrification and helping women come out of poverty. I was working on a second PhD, which I've now resigned from, but the topic was poverty alleviation strategies among women through social entrepreneurship. I really wanted to, it was cathartic for me because, like I said, I come from a country where, we have so much impoverished women who are the sole caretakers of their family. And I really wanted to come up with a way to help facilitate, them becoming successful. I do that now, but in a different capacity. X-Culture, for example, is one of them. And my international career really has been such a fulfilling experience for me. So it's such a pleasure to be, for example, your director today. Okay, next. I don't want us to run out of time because there's really the meat and potatoes, right? So the future. So this is what I want you guys now to think about. Now, this is your future. So I've told you my past and I've told you my present. Okay. So now I want you to start thinking about your future. And I'm going to share with you the things that I learned in this journey that I call life balance basics. Okay. Okay. Next, Annette. Okay. So you need to understand for yourself, who do you work for? Like you work every day studying, doing chores, or maybe you have a small part-time job. Who do you work for? Are you working for God? Are you working for people? Are you working for your family? Are you working for your parents? I'm not talking about physically working for them, but who are you working for? Like, why are you working? Who are the people that you are holding yourself accountable to, right? So for me, not only do I hold myself accountable to my dean, but I also hold myself accountable to God, maybe more to God than to my dean, because, I love my job and I love my dean, but if ever there came a time where I had to choose between God and my dean, there's no question, right? It's just a matter of turning off that switch. Then you have to ask yourself, what do you work for, right? So for me, I work to make the world a better place. And you guys have heard me say that over and over and over again, to make the world a better place and to teach you how to be a global citizen. Because I honestly believe that if you start to love the people on earth in the same way that you love the people in your country, that maybe we'll have more peace in the world. Why do you work? Again, I work because I would love to see my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and you guys to live in a world with peace and harmony. And I know that that's a long stretch, but I also believe that it's possible. When are you willing to work and where are you willing to work? So obviously, you're willing to work at any time of the day and you're willing to work anywhere in the world. And thank God that in your lifetime, we had this technology called Zoom or Google Docs or FaceTime or WhatsApp, because it actually enables you to work anywhere in the world, right? So just think about those as I ask you the next 10 minutes to write these things down for yourself, okay? Go ahead, Annette. So Ralph Waldo Emerson said, people with gifts are easy to find, but people who are symmetrical and balanced are the ones that are very difficult to find. So my goal here is to teach you how to take your gifts and how to gift them to the world, because I'm going to tell you right now, those gifts that you were given are not for you. They are going through you. Your gifts were given through you for all the people who will benefit because you were in their lives. So once you start to understand that, you will be more willing to give of yourself and not to be the recipient of that gift. For example, when you sing, if you don't sing for other people, nobody will ever get to hear the music. And if you think about it, your ability to sing is not for you. You're just the conduit for everybody to hear the music. So I want you to think that way. Okay, next. Okay, so there are, and this did not go well. I guess it didn't transition to Google Docs well, but I say that there are 5 well-beings that I divided: spiritual, mental, physical, relational, and financial. So if you think about this in a holistic way, right? Spiritual, mental, physical, relational, financial are all very different parts of what makes your life or your world healthier. They are interrelated. They are organic and holistic, but they are realistic and you can make them manageable. This is for everybody. I don't care if you are a teenager or you're a 65-year-old. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is where you start writing. What is your spiritual well-being? What are your belief systems? What are your values? What's your purpose? What's your awareness? What's your direction? So now all of us have different belief systems. Most of that actually originates from your community and your family. I grew up Catholic in the Philippines, but as I evolved, the Catholic values started to change for me. And now I consider myself more spiritual than just Catholic, right? And this is just for my purpose. I'm not sharing this with you for you to change your mind, but what I've found is that when I pigeonhole myself into a small value system, that I really ignore everybody else. And as I've evolved, let's just say, I've realized that having a specific religion really limited my value system. Whereas when I became more inclusive of every religion there is, Judaism, Buddhism, Taoism, all of, of course, Christianity and all of its little sects underneath it, I became more open and I became more inclusive. And that really perpetuated the value system that I wanted for myself. And I just started to expand, right? And this expansion directed me to a purpose, right? Because once you have a value system, the purpose then becomes kind of like your focus. And again, my purpose in life is to live an authentic life in the service of others. That's actually my mission statement, is to live an authentic life in the service of others, and in a way that I can bring awareness to all of you guys, right? And obviously that gave me direction, but I'm hoping that it's giving you direction as well. And again, it's all integrated, right? But this spiritual well-being became very strong for me, and it became stronger and stronger as I got older. You guys are still young, and a lot of this is kind of like, rocket science to you, but, just pay attention to that as you're becoming yourself. Okay, Annette? Then you have your mental well-being. Now, there's a difference between emotional well-being and mental well-being. Although your mental well-being is your emotional and psychological well-being. Okay. So I'm going to tell you this, and pay attention to me, that most diseases and illnesses originate from your emotional and psychological state. Okay. And if you can understand that you can tame that dragon, remember what I said before? You have no idea what dragons I had to slay to become who I am today. Okay, so those psychological and emotional challenges are these dragons, whatever color you make them, and whatever, whether they're spewing fire or water, whatever it is, like those dragons that are in your head can cause you a lot of stress. Okay. And that stress will elevate and put you in a place where it's not helpful. And learn that concept is when you start thinking about something that is taking you to a place that you can't really justify, stop yourself and say, this is not helpful, right? So you need to learn how to do that. And how do you do that? That next sentence or that next topic, stress management. Learn how to manage distress. And what I do is when I start to stress out, I just go do something else, or I go help somebody else, or I call a friend, phone a friend, right? Start creating these opportunities for you to stop yourself from hurting yourself with the emotional and psychological obstacles that you create for yourself, because most of it are self-inflicted. Stress management is something that you're going to have to learn how, and everybody has a different type of stress, right? You're going to have to learn how to manage it for yourself. Now, what are those mental outlets that you can start to focus your emotional and psychological energy into? Intellectual growth. I have read so many books. And you guys, as a little kid, I didn't like to read because I didn't learn how to speak English until I was 10. So it was difficult for me to read. And I struggled with the habit of reading. But then audiobooks came out. and I loved listening to music. And today I am reading 2 or 3 books a week if I don't have to work through audiobooks. So audiobooks is a great way to grow your book catalog. And believe it or not, YouTube also has audiobooks that you can, all of those books that are in public domain, they have them there, and you can actually, log in and just read those old, classic books in public domain. Focus on your professional development. Like, how can I improve my skills? You guys, we give you guys a lot of opportunities through X Culture Academy, where you can learn about new tools, new technological tools. You can learn about, new like all of these tours that we take. You can learn about, Nepal, for example. You can learn about one of the ones that we did last semester was Ethiopia, which was amazing. Those are all professional development. And then personal development, those talents that you have, and I put little crayons there, but those talents that you have were given to you so that you can develop them. Okay. Maybe you were meant to be a painter, and unless you start taking those, crayons and start learning how to draw as a child, how are you going to develop to become, this master painter? So whatever talent it is that you have, that God gave you, pay attention to that and develop it. And that will also inspire you to be more creative. And believe it or not, and I know this for myself, when I'm more creative, I am more emotionally and psychologically calm. So that creativity is actually, let's just say an antidote, right, to that emotional and psychological stress that oftentimes you find yourself in. Next, Annette. And then you have to take care of your body. I always tell you guys, sleep well, sleep enough, especially boys. Boys need at least 10 hours. Okay. I'm going to tell you, Jaren doesn't get that, but Jaren, you got to figure that out. Okay. Eat well. Don't put a lot of sugar in your body. Don't put a lot of fried food in your body. Eat well. Take care of your appearance. Some of my letters there are missing. Again, I transferred my PowerPoint into Google Docs, and a lot of my stuff got lost there. Take care of your appearance. And I'm not saying, go and get all of these things done. Take care of your appearance. Be clean, smell nice, be somebody that you want to be around, right? And take care of your physical well-being. I mean, your physical well-being, you can't really see. I mean, okay, you can see the big muscles and all of that stuff, but your heart, your lungs, those are all physical well-beings. Like, make sure that you're giving that the power it needs to carry you. Because guys, your body is the house of your soul while you're here on earth. Take care of the house of your soul while you have it, because it really does impact the quality of the rest of your life. Okay, next. Then the last one is your relationships, relational well-being. And I'm hoping that X Culture Academy is doing this for you, because it really does. It is a well-being that you need to nurture. So for example, you guys now are in your new groups. You just got put into your teams, right? You have a relationship with every single one of those people in your team. So, and I call them emotional bank accounts, which I think we have a slide for. So, but for me, I have my personal group and I have my professional group, and those are completely different groups. X Culture happens to be one of my professional groups. My personal groups is my community, my friends, my family, and I present myself differently to all of those people. But make sure that you're taking care of each one of those relationships. Annette, can you go to this next slide? So I call them emotional bank accounts. So let's take, for example, your relationship with your teammates, right? With each one of them, you develop a relationship. And if you show up for them, you've just deposited it into your emotional bank account. If you do something that you said you were going to do for your team, you've just deposited into your emotional bank account. And eventually, as you continue to deposit in your emotional bank account with each one of your newfound friends and your team as a whole, then you start to develop that personality and that character of a person who's reliable, who's present, who's dependable, right? And let's say something happens, right, where you couldn't show up, your internet was down and you couldn't show up. All of a sudden, you are withdrawing from your emotional bank account, but people know because in the past you've deposited into your emotional bank account that when you take a withdrawal, right, there's enough there to suffice to take care of that relationship. Now, if you're constantly withdrawing and withdrawing and withdrawing, then you know what happens, right? Your account goes bankrupt and then the relationship is severed. So pay attention to those relationships and those emotional bank accounts that you build with other people. Okay, next slide. And then the last thing about the well-beings is actually your financial well-being. I know that you guys are teenagers right now, but you know, here's the one good thing about being at your age group. And I think we're going to have to stop there, Annette, because we're not going to have the time to do the whole lecture. This is actually a 2-hour lecture that I was trying to condense into 1 hour, but we can continue to maybe do the second half of this another time. But the last part of your well-beings are your financial well-being. And I know that you guys are still, you know, like young, right? And you still have your whole life ahead of you. Now, there's this concept called time valued money, where if you put in the bank $1 today, that when you are retirement age, which is 65 here in the United States, or 67 now, that $1 will keep on growing and growing and growing to where maybe and let's say you're 15, right? And you have another 50 years to grow. That $1 could potentially be $100. You know, it will grow 100-fold. And you have your lifetime just by putting that money away for your future, where you can actually retire as a millionaire. And it's very easy to do that as a young person. I think, Annette, we have a financial lecturer who can actually teach them how to do that, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so we'll get you somebody that will teach you how to do that. But you know, one of the things that you need to pay attention to is what is your relationship with money, and how are you taking care of your goals and your dreams so that your relationship with money then becomes kind of like just normal. It's normalized, right? You're not obsessing over it, that it's there and you're growing it and it's not controlling your life. I want you guys to work for yourselves for the purpose of the bigger picture and not work because you want to grow your money. That's not life, guys. Life is about living it to the best of your ability with the joy and the love and all of those non-tangible, amazing things that life brings you. So I think we're going to stop there because we're out of time. Let's just see what the next one is. Annette.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to stop there. If I get another opportunity to talk with you guys again, we'll probably talk about role management and my 4 hats, but go ahead and stop there, Annette. I told you that there was one thing that I was going to give you a surprise for. So I don't know, Annette, if you could do my present, if you can go back to my present life. Okay. And I'll give you that. And then we'll leave the rest of the time for questions.
Just go back to my present.
Keep going, back. Okay, so just pause. Yeah. Well, go to the next slide, actually. Yeah. So one of the things that I told you, no, to the next, yeah, again, 8, go to slide 8. So one of the things that I told you was that, you know, remember to have a clear understanding of where you are today in your present life and who your priorities are and what your priorities are. And for me, and I want to give this to you. This is a gift, so pay attention, because you never know how your life is going to change. Go to 8, Annette.
This is like 8.
Yes, right? Stay there. Yeah. So I always tell my children this, that they are the center of my universe. And I don't tell my husband that because my husband passed away 9 years ago. So these pictures were taken not too long after he died, not too long before he died. And I want to share this with you because one of the things that I want you to know is that life is fleeting. It's not permanent. All of it is temporary. And that your life today, as it is so complete and enough. It's enough that you really need to celebrate it and enjoy it and love as much as you can and be as present as you can for those who are around you, because you never know what the next day will bring to you. Okay. So, so that's my message. Because when I closed the casket on my husband, that was the end of our physical existence together. And you never know how your life, how the tides are going to change the next day. So make sure that you love as much as you can. Make sure you enjoy as much as you can, and make sure that you are as present as you can be for everybody in your life, because it is all temporary. So Annette, go ahead and unshare, please. So we'll open this for questions now. I don't know how many people stayed. Oh, 53. Okay, so we have some.
There is a question here. Someone is asking, is stress management something like a coping mechanism?
No. Stress management is how do you take what is, okay, so let me tell you a mindfulness. How can we do it best? Okay. So we'll take those questions, those 2 questions in different ways, and we're going to run out of time, right? So if you guys are willing to stay, let me share with you one method of understanding your stress and how to manage it. So there's this concept by Tara Brach, and she's a psychologist. I believe she's at Yale. She's one of the Ivy League psychologists. And she talks about this concept of rain, right? So you always know when you're under stress because your heart tells you and your mind tells you. And you're like, you get these, for me, I get anxiety attacks. So, and I start to it starts to bubble up, right? And I want you to practice this, that rain, you recognize the stress, you allow the stress to surface, allow it to surface. You investigate why it's happening. Annette, could you write that down in the chat so that they can kind of see it, right? You allow the stress to surface. You investigate why you're feeling that stress, and then you nurture yourself, and then you pause. Let me go over it again. Oh no, let me see. Annette, I think that it's going to take us out of the webinar. So can you ask it to continue? I don't know if there's a 10 o'clock. Again, it's rain, right? Recognize the stress. You allow it to surface.
You allow stress to surface. Wait. You recognize first?
You recognize, then you allow it to surface. You investigate why that stress is happening, and then you nurture yourself.
Allow it to surface, you investigate why you feel the stress, and then you nurture yourself.
And then you pause. So now once you recognize that the stress is happening to you, what you need to do is give yourself the love and attention you need. And you can do this yourself. The love and attention you need to resolve whatever that is that's causing you to stress. And that pause, you give yourself the opportunity to help yourself resolve it. Okay. And again, kindness, be empathetic to yourself. And then that will allow you to be kind to others. And that will invite you to be kind to others. And that will allow you or invite you to be empathetic towards others. So practice that, guys. RAIN. How do we recognize what we do best and what our unique gifts are? Because you do it every day. You do it every day, whether you're singing in the shower, whether you're running because you run faster than somebody else, whether you're the life of the party, whether you're cooking in the kitchen, you know it's your gift because you do it every day and it's easy for you. And for somebody, it's terrible. I have a daughter who plays 16 musical instruments. 16 musical instruments. I can barely sing. I don't know how she did that, right? I mean, I sang in the choir when I was a kid, but man, God really gave her the talent to learn how to play 16 musical instruments.
The other Dr. B, right?
Well, yeah, the other Dr. B. She's a doctor and she teaches at Rutgers University. But you know your gifts because they're easy for you. It's like you have the absolute advantage in your talent. Okay, this one.
The very last one, right?
The jack of all trades, a master of none. That's your gift. You don't even know that. Yeah, they call that a global person, right? That you have this ability to do multiple things. So like my daughter who plays 16 instruments, she plays one instrument very well. But when she auditioned to go play for a conservatory, they didn't accept her because she wasn't good enough to go to a conservatory. And she's like, fine, I'll go to this university and I'll learn other instruments. And now, again, she plays 16 instruments, but she's not good enough in that one instrument to go play for a conservatory and be in the New York Philharmonic. But she can be the conductor of the 16 instruments because she knows how they all play. Okay, so you don't have to be your gift is that you can multitask. Your gift is that you can understand multiple things. Your gift is to be able to observe that and then maybe manage it.
Okay, I can see we are running out. We've actually run out of time. So yeah, but I think you've answered all the questions. That was the last one. Wait, sometimes I should be desperate of. Also, Dr. B, in a very short manner, is there a mantra of instantly becoming humble in a situation?
RAIN.
Teach yourself to do that.
Practice RAIN. When you catch yourself exercising a habit that you want to fix, you're like, when you're being boastful or you're being like, I call it, excuse my wording, but a pissing contest with somebody. When you find yourself in a pissing contest with somebody, that is not humbleness. You're trying to one up somebody. I find myself doing that sometimes. Me and Dr. Voss will do that to each other one time, but we're just joking, right? We know we have that relationship, but sometimes you do it to be hurtful to others. And that's when you stop yourself and you say, RAIN, recognize, allow, investigate why I have to be better than that person, nurture myself, and then let me nurture somebody else and be empathetic. Okay, so we have run out of time. If you guys have questions, send it to admin and
Academy. Yeah, send them to Academy at xculture.org and we will get back to you guys. So now I would just request for just 1 minute to go through what we will learn in the practical phase. Right now everyone has a team. I'm sure you're in the meet and greet session, and most of you have met your teammates. You've had calls, and you've built rapport. Maybe some of you have even built a team charter that is going to guide you through this program. The next phase is you will have to prepare a report section 1. You already have the material on the resource page. Please look at it, let it be your guide. And in case you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask academy.org, okay? Just write to xculture@academy.org and all your questions will be answered. You have assigned coaches and senior coaches. They're here to guide you. Please utilize this opportunity because everyone who's doing this is committed to ensuring that you have a fantastic experience. I think that's all for today. Thank you very much. Unless Dr. B has something to add.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Peace and love, guys.